Okay, I know what you're thinking. Lego, you've gone off the rails, bro. What are you talking about? This is not going to happen. Are you serious? There's no way this is actually going to happen. Why are you even making a video about this? Well, I'm making a video about it because it's funny. That's pretty much it. We have ourselves a whole bunch of shrapnel to talk about when it comes to the Bo Horvat to New York Islanders trade. By the way, we had ourselves the update the other day. He's still going to represent Team Pacific at the All-Star game. He's just going to be wearing an Islander sweater while doing it, which is very, very weird. Like, he's not going to be wearing a normal Islander sweater before he wears the All-Star version of the Islanders sweater doused in the Pacific colors. Like, what the hell? This is so weird. But either way, all John Scott type of situations aside, we have ourselves a lot of things that we haven't talked about yet when it comes to the Bo Horvat deal, and the biggest one from the Islanders' point of view is the extension. Bo Horvat, at the time of recording this audio, has not been extended yet. And for normal players under Lou Lamoriello, you won't usually see these guys get extended right away. Everybody was kind of joking around saying, oh, the Canucks, or not the Canucks, the Islanders might have already signed Horvat to an extension. We just won't learn about it until September. It's normally a pattern of Lou's to really drag things out and not reveal the details of contract extensions to the media until it eventually gets leaked somewhere else. But like, all extension jokes aside, this is probably the biggest thing the Islanders have on their chopping block right now. They've got a guy in Matty Barzal making 9.1, and they have a guy in Bo Horvat who could potentially be asking for something in that similar range. Whether or not that's 8, 8.5, 8.75, 9, who really knows? But Bo Horvat this season is all that and more. We all kind of know that he's had a great year. His market value for what he has done up to this season versus what he's been doing strictly in this season alone, there's such a differentiation there that the Vancouver Canucks in their own contract offer, which was reported to be something in the, let's say, 5.8 to maybe 6 point something million dollar range, that's definitely not aligned with what a 50-goal, 90-point pace player should be able to be getting on the market. So, for Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders, they might have themselves a conundrum where they have to give Bo Horvat a lot of money for him to stick around, but there is no real denying that, okay, if you're going to trade for Bo, you kind of have to think about that extension, especially when you're giving up Aatu Ratu, who is your best prospect, a first-round pick that has protection in the top 12, and then you have Bavillier as well. But this is why I wanted to make this individual video, because on the day of the trade, we had ourselves a tweet made by Dom Lucian that kind of got a lot of people joking around about this, and I know he's kind of joking about it too. He's poking fun at the situation, definitely not being serious when he says this, but this is what Dom says from Twitter. Bo Horvat to the Islanders. Horvat is having a strong year, and he gets traded early enough that the Islanders can also flip him when they're officially out of the playoff race in a month. And, yeah, okay, this had 340,000 views. Dom's material from The Athletic normally does. And because he kind of joked around about this, everybody else started to joke about this too, saying, hey, the Islanders could realistically trade Horvat because the trade deadline is in a month. I mean, the Islanders aren't necessarily guaranteed to start winning games. Bo Horvat is not going to be the be-all and end-all, the one deciding factor as to whether or not they make the dance. Sure, he could help them out tremendously, but he's not guaranteed to being that guy that will force the team into the playoffs by sheer power of will. He's not guaranteed to do that. So if the Islanders still are out of the playoff spot by this time next month, and by the time the trade deadline is looming over their doors, they could trade Horvat away for even more. I saw this pop up on my timeline, and in a few conversations I was having too, that the Canucks should not have traded Bo this early, quote unquote. And I think it's coming from a fair perspective. Like, I can understand why there would be people going out there saying that the trade was made way too early, but at the same time, I feel like for Vancouver fans, when you're thinking about Bo Horvat, you gotta try to separate the emotions from it. There are a lot of people that got super pissed off about the Bo trade, not necessarily because they didn't like the return or because of that timing specifically, but because it was Bo. You know, this guy was a captain. He was beloved in Vancouver. Some would argue he's the face of the franchise. I wouldn't say that, but like, there's a very fair perspective that brings itself up saying that Bo Horvat was traded too early, and the Canucks could have dragged this out longer to get more stuff. But the response to that is that Vancouver was in such a precarious position with their salary cap that a Bo trade was so difficult to make in the first place. Everybody kind of knew. Everybody, as in GMs, media, fans of teams that aren't even Vancouver, everybody knew that the Canucks in their salary cap situation was kind of doomed once they had signed Andrei Kuzmenko. You could even debate it was doomed the moment they had signed Miller to that extension back in the summer. So, Bo, being in the position where he was at, everybody kind of knew that he was going to get traded. It wasn't surprising in the slightest. The only matter was when, not if. So, for Bo, getting traded in that manner was sort of kind of necessary at that point. And further to that point, if you traded away Bo Horvat from last year for a Ratu, Beauvillier, and a first, I think a lot of Canucks fans would consider that a win. If you traded Bo Horvat from the entire body's worth of work he had had before this season for Ratu, Beauvillier, and a first, you could say, yeah, no, that's probably worth it. The Canucks might even have gotten a steal of a trade in this. Like, Bo Horvat is only really being evaluated as somebody who could get more than that because of this season's worth of play alone. On pace for 50 goals, on pace for 90 points had he stayed with Vancouver. The Islanders, as we have said, have played more games than Vancouver, so Bo cannot play 82 games on the season anymore. But because of Bo's play from this year alone, I can understand when some Canucks fans say that they think Bo should have been able to fetch a little bit more. But for me, I'm more than happy with this return. It's just, the Islanders are in a position now where after making this trade for this guy, if they eventually fall out of the playoffs so far that they all of a sudden can make a trade for Horvat again, I'm not too sure if they're going to be able to rejuvenate all the crap that they had given up in that Bo Horvat trade in the first place. Aatu Ratu was their best prospect, and that first-round pick, I mean, it's a pretty valuable first-round pick, especially for a team that might fall out of the playoffs. If they end up keeping the pick and giving the Canucks an unprotected 2024 first-round pick instead, things could be very, very good for Vancouver if the Islanders cannot get themselves out of that funk and actually start winning again in 2023-2024. Because if you trade Bo Horvat away, that means you're probably not going to be able to re-sign him in the offseason, since a whole bunch of other teams are going to really want to get that guy, and there's going to be a bidding war if he does go to free agency in the first place. But if the Islanders really wanted to, I mean, apparently Dallas, apparently New Jersey were super high on Horvat, and they may have some assets the Islanders could get back in some sort of a trade. We had talked about this in the video before the trade was made, but like, I don't really think Dallas has too many prospects that the Canucks would have cared about, so I'm not too sure if anybody on that pool would have been able to fulfill the gap left by Aatu Ratu should the Islanders make a trade with Dallas. For New Jersey, there are a few guys that I do think are really good, but I'm not too sure if the Devils would be willing to touch a lot of those players. When it comes to first-round picks, I would debate that the Islanders' first is a lot more valuable than Dallas's and New Jersey's. And then when it comes to roster players, I mean, okay, Beauvillier, Bo Horvat, whatever, Bo for Bo, I do think the Vancouver Canucks have some good value in Beauvillier, and we'll talk about that in the video later on in... let's talk about it next week, I guess. There's a lot of time before the Canucks come back and play again after this All-Star break, so either way, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire idea of the Canucks, or not the Canucks, the Islanders trading Bo Horvat away once more if they start losing games. This wasn't only brought up by Dom Lucian on The Athletic. I saw a lot of other people having conversations about the Islanders making this trade so early that if they wanted to flip Bo, they can, and they might even be able to get a bigger haul than the Canucks did, but I don't know, circumstantially, it doesn't really fit with me. I don't really think the Canucks did as poorly as some may go out there and say that they had. This is also sort of what you get with trades that I define are good. I define a good trade as a trade that pisses both fan bases off. A trade that satisfies some and pisses off some in both fan bases. I'd had a lot of conversations with many Canucks fans in my day-to-day life that said, hey, I thought the trade was good. Like, what are you talking about? It's a bad trade? And then there are other Canucks fans I've talked to who said, yeah, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. They didn't get as much as they could have. I don't like the timing of it, whatever. There's a lot of differing opinion, and I'm very aware that that's also the same on the Islanders side too. So talk to the comments your thoughts about this Bo Horvat idea of him getting traded once more within the season to another team to get the Islanders even more once they fall out of a playoff spot. Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's not? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.